Hey guys, wanted to do a viewers uh, encounter that they had. Teresa P sent it in. I don't know if she wanted her full name given out, so I'm not going to do that. If she does, she'll give her name down in the comments. Another thing, I want to thank y'all for the great live last night. Last night's live was awesome. We rocked it out on that live. Appreciate that very much and all the donations you all did last night. It was awesome. Look forward to doing it with y'all next month. So I'm going to go ahead and read her story to you guys. She wanted to share. And oh, we have a live podcast we're doing today. I'll try to have it out tonight too. So we're busy. She says, "Hi, my name is Teresa. I grew up in a small coal town in southwest Pennsylvania, very near the Appalachian Mountains, and I now live in the Chestnut Ridge near the Laurel Mountains. The Chestnut Ridge became famous for Bigfoot and UFO back in the 70s. There was an incident of two UFO landings in a farm field where I live, now in a small town, and people on the farm went out to see what it was. And they saw creatures walking through the field beyond the UFOs that looked exactly as the description of Bigfoot. There was also a UFO crash in Kecksburg, Pennsylvania, that is not very far from where I live now. There is a big organization here in Pennsylvania that does research and goes on investigations right into the woods where I live in the Chestnut Ridge area. A channel on YouTube just did their story. Anyway, when I was growing up, we had 6 kids in our family, so we couldn't afford to go on expensive vacations to big parks such as Disney, like many families do nowadays. We went camping every summer, and a lot of times other family members would go camping at the same time, and us kids would all get together and run around and have a blast. So if you go camping year after year as you grow up and become an adult, your love of camping usually stays. My current husband never grew up camping, so he never had the desire to go. I am now 65 and had not been camping since I was in my 30s. And well, I did take my grandson camping when I took him in for a year, but that was it anyway. My son and daughter in law go camping at the park in the Laurel Mountains here at about an hour away from where I live. There is one camp spot at the state park they go to. They love because it is away from all the other ones, and it is down in the woods away from the road. You have to walk down a very steep rocky trail to get to it. You can see it standing up there from the road, but otherwise you would not know it was there. And there are woods all around. About 200 to 300 feet up the road is a pet ring where all the people that have dogs go camp in that ring, where we arrive on Monday and everyone had packed up and gone home Sunday. Sounds like a really nice place up there. I've heard a lot of good stuff about that. Let's see. And she said there was only a little camp spot across the road from us, and then there was some kind of utility box and no campsite after that. But we're on a downhill loop, and you really couldn't see any other campsites unless you really looked hard where we were. I had gone up to visit from the day, and it was my birthday 2 weeks before, and they wanted to surprise me. They bought me a tent, and I already had a sleeping bag, and a camp light, and an air mattress, which it turned out it didn't work anymore. Anyways, 2 months before this, my son and daughter-in-law went camping in this exact spot in May or 2 straight weeks. Now, they went for 2 weeks. Everything was fine, and then again in June, they went camping there again for 2 weeks because my son had his own business and could take off time. My daughter-in-law works at a local college, so she had the summer off because the kids had to go home for the summer break. One night, while they were sleeping around 3 in the morning, they said they were awoken by a very loud owl hooting on one side of the tent. And then another owl on the other side of the tent would answer, and my son was very adamant at how loud it was, and it kept them awake. This went on for a good 15 minutes, and then finally it stopped, and my son went back to sleep. A little bit later, my daughter-in-law heard something large lumbering through the campsite, and she said it sounded like it had asthma, a very guttural breathing, and it sounded like it was struggling to breathe. It didn't do anything or cause any problems. When she told me this, I said that was a Bigfoot. When you walk down the path, their campsite there is a canopy set up on the left over the picnic table, and then fire ring is right in front of that at the bottom of the path. And then back to 20 to 25 feet is where they set up my little blue tent, and then to the right of the fire ring was a path leading down to the huge tent that sleeps probably 12 people. All around the campsite is woods, and directly where my little tent is set up there was little saplings all over the place, and many of them were deliberately snapped off. I know, because I went back there to gather wood to occasionally relieve myself when I didn't feel like walking up the steep path to the car to drive to the bathroom. Behind my tent, the far back left of the property, 100 feet at least, there was an area of down trees, and it just looked very black and creepy in there. I don't think you could even walk through it, it was so thick with the down trees. I never went near that area the whole time I was there. I was only planning on staying there for 3 days when I spent up in August. My husband did not come, obviously, because he does not like camping. My son and daughter-in-law surprised me again by inviting my daughter and her husband to come spend a couple of nights while I was there for her birthday. So they stayed in the pet ring with their dog and would come over and visit us, and we'd sit all around the campfire telling stories and laughing about our camping trips when the kids were little and growing up. We had a great time. On the third night there, I was awakened at 3 in the morning by a loud whack coming from the area with the downed trees. It was so loud it sounded like something slammed on a tree back there. I immediately became filled with adrenaline, sat straight up in my sleeping bag, and I was terrified. I immediately thought of Bigfoot because of my daughter-in-law's experience early in the summer. I laid there shaking and shivering with fear, praying that nothing peeked in my screened little miniature windows at the bottom of the tent where they let the airflow in. My regular windows were closed, so nothing could see in from the higher up. I laid there, and I laid trying to fall back asleep, but was too filled with adrenaline, when all of a sudden, about 10 minutes later, another whack on a tree right above our campsite. I've debated whether to yell out for my son's name or not, but I didn't and decided to wait. Then about 10 minutes later, on down from my son's tent, another whack on a tree. I bet I laid there a good 45 minutes in fear before I could finally get back to sleep. In the morning when I woke up, it was around 9. My son had gone out to the campfire and was sitting there smoking a cigarette. I came out of the tent and said, "Did you guys hear that loud whack on the trees last night?" And his wife had come, and then they both looked at each other and said, "No, what are you talking about?" So I told them what happened, and I said I think it was Bigfoot, and they just chuckle at me when I talk about Bigfoot because they don't believe in it. For the life of me, I don't understand how they weren't awakened by the loud whacking on the tree sounds. That's something I'll never understand. Behind my tent, if you walk straight down about 200 to 250 feet, there is one main road that goes through the park that is the only way in or out of the park that I know of. The only day a guy drove in on a motorcycle and set up a tent with a hammock, those two things you can sleep in that have like a tent roof over the top of the hammock. I saw him when I went to the restroom to the shower the next day. He was in that little camp spot, but no one else was in the area. The next day, while I was there sitting around the campfire, that guy walked on top of the hill above our campsite and yelled down at it and asked us if we heard about any bears walking around the night before. And I did remember very late I heard people talking down on the road, something about a bear, but that's all I could make out. So we told him that, but we hadn't seen any bear or heard anything. He said around 3 in the morning something touched his toe through his tent hammock, and he wondered if it could have been a bear. That totally freaked me out, thinking possibly a Bigfoot. I've heard of them doing that or touching people through their tents. He only stayed there that one night and told us that he didn't want to pay for a hotel room while he was traveling to another state, and that's why he was camping there. Anyways, we ended up having a wonderful time and ended up staying a full 6 nights, and nothing else happened after that. So, sounds to me like they had something in the area messing around, and I have heard of people getting touched through tents. There was a man that got touched through a tent that actually whacked the back of the Bigfoot's hand with his hand and said it actually ran off. It sounds to me like This one was up messing around, possibly testing to see what he could get away with, and touching that guy's toes. It might have been thinking about dragging him off into the woods, or I don't know. It's kind of weird. I don't want nothing touching my feet while I'm asleep. But Teresa P shared that story with us and wanted us to share another encounter that's happening all over the place, and it just goes to show that a lot of people are having a lot of encounters. I hope you all enjoyed this. Doing the live podcast today. I'll try to get it out as soon as I can. Should be a pretty good one. I appreciate y'all watching. Keep your head on a swivel, and we'll see you next time.